My name is Dan Ariely. I'm the James B. Duke Professor of Psychology and Behavioral Economics at Duke University. And I want to talk a little bit about ethics. But before I start, I want to explain my half a beard. Many years ago, I was badly burned, so much of my body is covered with scars, including the right side of my face. And the standard theory, the thing that is driving the justice system, but also our thought, is that there's some good apples and bad apples, and that's it. And what protects us, we are the good apples, is that we're good. And that is going to actually protect us against being bad, and we only need to worry about the bad apples. But is this really the case?
How many people here have cheated since the beginning of 2012? Okay. Lied? Yes, of course. At the same time, how many people here think of yourself as generally good, honest, wonderful people? And this is the conundrum I want us to think about. On one hand, we admit that we're able to be dishonest. On the other hand, we think of ourselves as honest people. How can we do both? And what I would like to propose is that human beings basically try to do two things at the same time. On one hand, we want to be able to look in the mirror and feel good about ourselves. On the other hand, we want to benefit from being dishonest. Now, you could say you could do one or the other. You can either look at yourself as honest or you could benefit from dishonesty. You can't do both. Well, it turns out that thanks to our flexible cognitive psychology and thanks to our ability to rationalize our actions, we could do both. Let me describe to you how we measure dishonesty. Imagine you were all in the experiment. I would pass you a sheet of paper with 20 simple math problems, and I would say you have 5 minutes to solve as many of those as you can. I'll give you $1 per question. Go! You would turn off the page. You will start working as fast as you can. At the end of the 5 minutes, I would say, please stop. Count how many questions you got correctly. And now go to the back of the room and shred your piece of paper. And once you finish shredding it, come to me and tell me how many questions you got correctly. People do this, they count, they shred, they come to me and they say they solved 6 problems, we pay them $6. What the people in the experiment don't know is that the shredder has been fixed. So the shredder only shreds the sides of the page, but the main body of the page remains intact. We can jump into the recycling bin, we can find out how many questions people really solve correctly. What do we find? On average, people solve 4 problems and report to be solving 6.
There are very few big cheaters, and there are a ton of little cheaters. All of us have the capacity to cheat a little bit, and by the way, still think of ourselves as good people.
So imagine that rationalization is like a balloon or machine. And as rationalization increases, our capacity to rationalize increase, we can be more dishonest and feel okay about ourselves. And as our capacity to rationalizing decrease, it's harder for us to be dishonest and feel good about ourselves. So let me turn it to you and let us think for a few minutes together about what kind of things would get people to rationalize to a higher degree. So imagine we run the same experiment in here, but we hire an acting student. And we ask that acting student to sit in the front row and 30 seconds into the experiment to raise their hand and said, excuse me, I solved everything, what do I do now? And the experimenter said, you solved everything, get your full payment and go home. Now, if you're in the experiment, you're still on problem number 1. There's no question in your mind that that person cheated, right? There's no way they could solve all 20, but you see them taking all the money and going home. What would happen to your own morality? Lots more people cheat. So here's one experiment we did. We went to coffee shops in Boston and we asked people, hey, would you do this experiment for us for 5 minutes for $5? Everybody said yes. We gave them the task. We explained to them what they were supposed to do to fill some paperwork. Then we came back 5 minutes later and we said, here's your $5. Please count it and sign a receipt for $5. But we actually gave them $9. How many people do you think would return the money? Slightly more than 50% of the people returned the money, and you could decide for yourself if this is a high number or a low number. In the second condition, when the research assistant explained to them the experiment, they interrupted in the middle, they pretended that somebody was calling them, they picked up the phone, they ignored the participant, and they talked for 12 seconds to John about pizza. put the phone down, went back to explaining the results. Now when they gave $9 to people at the end of the experiment, what happened? Almost nobody returned the money back. Now, if you were a participant, you could think to yourself that you're kind of doing justice to the world, right? Here is somebody that just offended you, and you're restoring karma by taking their money back. Imagine that you have a friend, and imagine that you care about this friend. And now, if you're dishonest, this friend gets to benefit as well. What would happen? So in one experiment, we did this. We measured how much people are dishonest when they stand to gain from their dishonesty, and we measured what happened if the other person gets to gain to benefit from their dishonesty as well. And what we saw is that when somebody else gets to benefit, people are more dishonest. What would get people to cheat less? We went to UCLA, Los Angeles, and we asked about 500 students to try and recall the 10 Commandments. By the way, none of them could remember all 10 Commandments, and they invented lots of interesting ones. But after trying to recall the 10 Commandments, when we gave them the same opportunity to be dishonest, nobody was dishonest. In fact, even when we take self-declared atheists and we ask them to swear on the Bible, and we give them a chance to cheat, they don't cheat. So this suggests that there's something about reminders that the moment we think about morality, even if it's not our own moral code, all of a sudden we are kind of supervising ourselves to a higher degree. We're more thoughtful about our own actions, and as a consequence, we let ourselves get away with less activities.
Most of the attempts to try and reduce dishonesty are about the time after. If you'll behave badly, we'll catch you and maybe put you in jail. That turns out doesn't really matter. It means we need to think about the time before, which is where education is. How do we get people to have rules for behavior, to have moral standing? This is the task ahead of us, and it's something we have to do.